Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. We are a year-round talk series bringing you the best creative voices across film, television, and theater. And today we're so thrilled to be joined by the fantastic Jennifer Connelly to talk all about the second season of Snowpiercer. And one of the things that I was really interested in terms of coming back and working on the second season was that, you talked a lot about how with the first season, it was such a new experience in terms of coming into television and thinking about character structure in a different way. And obviously the pacing's very different and you're learning a lot of your character details on the fly as scripts come together in a way that you obviously don't with film. So was it something that felt much more comfortable coming into the second season? And how did you find yourself working differently with the scripts, just kind of knowing what to anticipate in terms of the environment, the pace and the flow a little bit differently?
I think there's a little of both. I mean, there was certainly, there was a lot of continuity. We had,
Mhm.
pretty much so much of the crew came back from season one. So there were a lot of familiar faces. Of course, we had all of those relationships already
Mhm.
established with the cast and with Graham and our producers and the writers.
Mhm.
I feel like we really hit our stride in terms of the way that we collaborated together, all of us.
Mhm.
So that was felt really easy coming, it felt really nice coming into season two, having those relationships in place already. Um, and yeah, it also kind of felt like the character had
Mhm.
she had sort of come into her own. I felt like by the end of, it was like she'd been wearing these different masks and she finally took them all off and we kind of finally got to meet her, I feel like,
Mhm.
at the end of season one. So beginning of season two, it was sort of, she had settled into herself. So she felt like a more grounded version of herself. I enjoyed playing that version of Melanie. And then, of course,
Mhm.
they throw a bunch of, you know, interesting situations at her for her to have to navigate.
There's always curveballs in every episode. And I know with season one that you had a really great collaborative relationship with Graham when he first came on as the showrunner, and a lot of opportunity to talk with him about the different beats of Melanie as a character and to collaborate really closely with him and the writing team. Was that similar this season, especially given that you know her so intricately at this point? You know how she responds to a lot of situations, and there's a perspective that you can provide as an actor that they may not even capture or interpret in terms of who she is as well.
Yeah, I mean, we really had that kind of collaboration and conversation right from the beginning,
Hmm.
I felt, and that just continued with season two.
Hmm.
Um, I love to kind of talk things through. Graham can
Yeah.
tell you. I love to sort of go through everything and just have conversations about the episodes and the scenes, and so we continued to do that like we had done in season
Hmm.
one. Um, and but yeah, you get to know each other that much better and cut to the chase a little quicker, and um, talking creatively about things. It was a really nice relationship. I really enjoy
Hmm.
working with Graham. And season two, we have Christoph, who's our producing director for season two. He was
Hmm.
great. That was a new relationship, but I felt really very comfortable with him and very creatively aligned with him from the get go. Before we even started filming, I had a meeting with him, and I really enjoyed our conversations and his um, decisiveness and his clarity and his
Hmm.
very practical. He manages to be creative yet practical and have just really sound, good judgment, which is
Hmm.
really nice. You feel like you're in really capable hands.
Yeah, and because you're mentioning that with Graham, one of the things that you really like to do is to talk things through extensively and in depth. Does that transcend to the way that you work with your castmates and scene partners as well? That's how you like to approach scenes and trying to figure out what the different beats of it and the different rhythms and emotional layers might be?
No, not so much.
Hmm.
I feel like that's more um, personal in terms of my
Hmm.
own character.
Hmm.
Um, Not really. I like to,
Hmm.
once I get on set, I like to do all of that honestly beforehand,
Yeah.
in kind of understanding a scene and talking about a scene, um, And then once I arrive to do the scene, I like to just play the scene and be in the
Mhm.
scene and try different things. So for me, that's a time once we get on set to just, experiment and try different blockings and see what the other actors are bringing and
Mhm.
work off that.
Yeah. In terms of the blocking, obviously with the entire train, even when you're walking into a completely new carriage for the first time within the world of the series, this is a space that Melanie knows completely intricately. She's literally touched every single corner of that train, both to prior to when it was leaving and during the time that she's been on there. And we see that even in the first episode where she's underneath it and she knows all of the different mechanics that are going on. And is there a way that you kind of approach moving throughout the scenes and blocking the scenes to really capture that? Because it just feels like you have such like an intimate relationship with the physical space around you as well.
It certainly helped having that time on the sets, but I
Mhm.
liked to, I did, I love blocking, and I love trying different things in blocking. And I liked, because I did feel like she, in the environments where she, that she, on the train, which she knows so intimately, and frankly on the other train, which she also knows so
Mhm.
intimately, even though she hasn't been there for a really long
Mhm.
time. Um, yeah, I felt like it was useful for me to walk those sets and walk around them and kind of sit everywhere and touch things. And um, so, um, so that I felt like I felt at ease in those spaces and could feel like I could inhabit those spaces as if I'd been inhabiting them for a while. And it was great
Mhm.
to have them, and to have the sets there, and that the sets stayed there. And
Mhm.
you could go, if I knew I had a scene that was shooting, the next day or a few days later, I could go visit, and I wanted to think about it. I could go walk onto that set, because it was right there. We had the sound stages and we had all of the cars there. So, I could go talk with Graham on the set and sort of think about things.
Yeah. And, obviously with the other train that you were mentioning, that also includes the arrival of Mr. Wilford, played by Sean Bean. And what was it like in terms of constructing what their relationship and their dynamic was going to be? Because obviously throughout the first season, he existed as a character to you and someone that you were playing to and imagining a lot of the time. And potentially crafting a lot of backstory into what that relationship and dynamic had looked like. But now you have him there as a physical person. So did it shift any of the expectations or any of the things that you'd anticipated, or did it really kind of back up what you'd already constructed for yourself in the first season?
Uh, I don't know that it really shifted anything, because he's someone who, he is all of those things that we explored. He is all those things. He just,
Mhm.
and that we established and discussed in season one,
Mhm.
in terms of his brutality and his narcissism and his lack of regard for
Mhm.
for lack of interest in preserving humanity, really, all that stuff that we articulate in season one. He is all of those things. He presents as someone sort of very convivial, and
Mhm.
so that was the way that was going to be interpreted was going to be a surprise, but at his core the actions are the
Mhm.
same. um, but yes, Sean brings a real, he's very charming, and
Yeah.
um, he's quite likable, so he presents as someone who's kind of really fun to have a dinner with, and um, uh, which is an interesting layer, um,
Mhm.
to add to Wilford, I think.
Yeah. There's also a really interesting arrogance to the swagger that he brings to that character as well. There's the moment in that first episode where you walk into the room and he's just sitting there taking a bath, and that's a fully intentional thing. It's not, oh, you caught me here, I didn't realize you were coming into the room. And he definitely comes across as if he feels like he's already got the upper hand from that first beat. So how did you think about the different beats of what that dynamic was going to be? Because they obviously haven't seen each other for a long period of time and they're clearly trying to like suss each other out and play a game. So how did you determine what Melanie's rhythms with him were going to be and how she was going to try and observe and get the information that she needs and kind of get the upper hand at each of these interactions that they have?
Well, she's already set a trap at the beginning when she walks
Mhm.
in, and she knows that she's set a trap.
Yeah.
So she walks in kind of knowing that she has the upper hand, even though he
Mhm.
thinks he does. But then she's thrown for a loop when she sees Alex. So
Mhm.
that really changes everything for her. Um, you know, they're interesting characters. There's a reason why they were together. I mean, that they worked together, and that, you know, they kind of, there are aspects of him that she appreciates, you know, his
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. I think that they, you know, they can at times enjoy each other's company, but so that those sort of moments were interesting to play. I think, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
ways in which they interacted. Um, but they're both people who are really smart and are really determined to achieve their goals, you know, in their
Mm-hmm.
own different ways. And so, just in the way that he's always scheming and planning, she's always scheming and planning. So she's always looking, you know, she's
Mm-hmm.
always gathering information. So when he welcomes her in, she's checking out what he's done and how he's repurposed things, and the, you know, the pipes and the wiring, and you know, what the train has, just in the way that he is taking stock and
Mm-hmm.
inventory and what they have. um, on Snowpiercer, she's taking inventory of, you know, what's happening on Big Alice.
Yeah. And you were just mentioning that, obviously she walks in and sees Alex, her daughter there, which is another new character introduction. And I really thought you made such beautiful choices in the way that you responded to that. And again, just kind of like she just allows herself to step back and process the emotion of the situation rather than stepping fully forward, because she still doesn't know what she's walking into. And then, as she starts to get to know her a little bit, we also see, Alex has learned a lot of things from her mother. And so that kind of gives another layer to their history and their backstory, and the way that she would have raised her as a daughter, the types of things that she would have been teaching her day to day. So again, kind of like what was that journey in developing that relationship and thinking about what that emotional response would feel like to walk into that room for the first time and to see her, and how you wanted to respond to it, because there were so many different directions that scene could have come through, and it was so poignant.
I, Thanks. I thought it was really complicated. It was so many things at
Mhm,
the same time, you know,
mhm,
because there's overwhelming relief that she's alive. Then there's the awareness that she's alive, but she's with him.
mhm,
There's the guilt that, you know, of having left her. There's the, you know, wanting to go to her, feeling like she doesn't have the right to go to her, not knowing
mhm,
how to go to her. There's so much happening at the same time. I really like the way there it was it was built. The, you know, the sort of, I like the way Graham and the writers built their relationship, that kind of like gradual, you know, the sort of gradually approaching each other in,
mhm,
you know, small steps and gestures here and there. um, I just felt like I didn't want Melanie to, I thought Melanie was smart enough to know that she couldn't presume a relationship with her daughter that she didn't have, you know.
mhm,
She wants so much to have that relationship,
mhm,
and just to hold her, and for all, you know, all of those years to go away, and just to have this beautiful reunion.
mhm,
But she knows that that's naive, you know, that and I like the fact that she decided that she would wait, you know,
mhm.
she would wait, and she would try to earn it. She would try to earn that relationship, show that she was there, and wanted it more than anything, but wouldn't
Mhm.
presume it, you know.
Yeah. And in terms of Melanie as well, there's a loneliness that she's always carried with her as a character, not even just because of not having her daughter and not having her family, but because she had to keep so many things close to her chest throughout that entire first season and could never really get close to anybody and anybody into her world. But then we've kind of gradually seen the armor come down a little bit in certain ways. So how do you make those choices about, what those different layers are going to look like and how much she's going to allow someone to come into her world while still kind of making sure that she is kind of keeping everything very internalized?
I think everything starts to change for her when she abdicates um, power in terms of
Mhm,
leadership on the train, and she reassumes her primary role, which
mhm,
is to be an engineer and to be a scientist, you know. She never, I mean, she never really wanted to be a politician or a leader. She just wanted the train to have the best chance for survival. um, and maybe that was narcissistic of her to think that she was, the one to do it. But
Hmm.
between her and Wilford, seems like probably she was the better choice. But I think that her concern in abdicating power to Layton isn't that um, she's reluctant to let it go. She's the only reservation she has are, will it be okay? Will everything run smoothly? Will everyone survive? Will the train survive? Will the resources survive? It's such a kind of delicate balance that has to be maintained for everything to work and move forward. But I think that yeah, so I think that she's kind of happy to just do the thing that she is meant to do, and in so doing, she's able to, I think, be more herself, return to who she really is, which is a scientist and an engineer, and now that she's confronted some of the things that she was hiding, I think she begins to be able to feel things again, and um, have more genuine relationships.
Yeah, that's so interesting in the way that you describe how she never wanted a leadership position, that she's not a politician, because that's exactly the construct of Layton as well. And the dynamic between the two of them has always had this kind of push and pull where they're adversarial, but they also really understand each other and respect each other. And it feels like that relationship is kind of continuing to shift its dynamic a lot more in the coming episodes as well. Did you find that it was asking the two of you to kind of construct a slightly different dynamic and a different rhythm to the way that you were approaching scenes together, now that he's kind of taking over and understanding a lot of the choices that she's had to make?
Yeah, I think that certainly they enter season two more as allies,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of not that they agree with each other on everything, but they're definitely an allied force,
Mm-hmm.
which is very different from where they started for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with Melanie, obviously she interacts with every single passenger on that train and has been there for 7 years, which, performance wise is kind of a feat, because every single character that you interact with, there's a history and there's a backstory. Kind of how broad did you enjoy going, or want to go, in terms of how much you wanted to construct with each of the characters, whether there's someone, like David, who's in most of the scenes with her throughout the season, or whether it's someone that is a little bit more on the periphery of her world? Like, what was useful to you in terms of developing those different dynamics and different interactions and backstories for you?
Um, well, you know, for me, it's the details are important and that they help tell the story. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're important for. I feel like having a detailed kind of view of a character and
Mm-hmm.
is really helpful just in performance because
Mm-hmm.
you know I like to just I don't know. I find that specificity interesting to
Mm-hmm.
play. I enjoy it when I watch it when other people are
Yeah.
specific in their performances. So I'm, um, I love all those opportunities. I love all
Yeah.
those opportunities for interaction with specific interactions with backstories with characters that I have, that I'm just have passing um,
Mm-hmm.
moments with and scenes with longer scenes with.
Yeah. And also, when you think about the passing of time on the train as well, so much can happen in a couple of episodes, and then you realize it's just been a matter of hours, really, in the life of these characters. Is there a challenge to figuring out what the emotional and narrative arc beats are going to be when you have to have such a drastic shift and change at every single moment and every experience that she's going through and responding to, at the same time as recognizing that the passing of time is actually not that great in terms of her world?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot. There's a lot of there's just a lot of scenes,
Yeah.
like doing a whole season of a show, and there is a lot that happens, and it is sometimes in a short period of time. I could not hold it in my head, so I had, I had the most
Hmm.
enormous binder that I took everywhere. I was afraid to leave it anywhere. I brought it with me to work every day and to set, and it always came with me. It was like this thick. It had all of the scripts,
Oh,
and I also wrote all of the. I wrote my own one-liners for every single thing that happens in all of the scripts and the day
mhm,
breaks. And I mean, I just I know that they provide those things sometimes, but I made my own of everything that she did and everything that happened and every scene that she had. So I would read through it a lot actually throughout the
mhm,
day, just to keep track of what had happened before and where we were in the story, because it can become, for me, I found it, a little, it was a lot to carry.
yeah.
Um, um, just the amount of, just what was happening in the narrative. So I leaned on that a lot. That's my sort of roadmap. And then of course, um, that's just a map. And then you find different
Mhm,
things on the way,
yeah.
so then you reorient and kind of, um, make changes and shifts here and there.
Mhm,
It's not to say that I like everything is planned out. It's just I like to have a sense of what's come before and where I'm going. Um,
mhm.
yeah, and something of that scale.
How does that compare to the types of notes and materials that you tend to build out for yourself on other projects?
Um, well, similar. It's just there's so
Mhm,
much more content that
yeah,
I felt like the breakdown was, on a movie, it's easier to hold. This is like 10
yeah,
movies that you're shooting, and you're shooting, so, we wouldn't just shoot one episode and then move on
yeah.
to the next episode. We would shoot, um, you would have a day where I would shoot scenes from episode 2, episode 6, episode 4, so
Mhm,
um, when each one is kind of its own film, that's hard
yeah.
to do without that kind of, for me, having it out on paper.
Yeah. And I also wanted to ask a little bit about the way that she makes decisions as a character and how that informs a lot of the choices that you make as an actor and how you think about her motivations, because her decision making is very pragmatic and has to be, and she has to kind of separate the emotion from it. But it's also interesting to watch a lot of the choices that she makes, because she often goes into very unexpected places from what audience members and viewers think that they would do in that situation. So, did you find that there was a difference with this character in terms of how you thought about her choices and her motivation in a lot of scenes?
What's an example of what you thought was different about how she responded?
I think just in terms of the fact that she's really had to let go of the idea of human cost in a lot of moments. That's something that people struggle with because of the emotional side, but it's something that she clearly was faced, at a crossroads at some point, realized the choice that she had to make and understands because of that a lot of the decisions that she has to make moving forward.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think early in the season, she absolutely, early in season 1,
Mhm.
she's making choices that are reprehensible. I mean, she's doing
Yeah.
horrible things. Um, and and she's kind of playing into it because she's kind of trying to maintain this thing and keep up this charade and I think that she comes to a point where she's so disgusted by it and by
Mhm.
herself. And I think that, it's one of those things that I think she started it thinking, I don't know that I inherited this way of running things when she took over the train. I don't know that I can completely disrupt the status quo
Mhm.
and introduce a new way of running the train and have everything and have it go okay, and survive. There's like a lot. I think she felt like, let's just keep the order.
Mhm.
Let's just keep everything as smooth as possible and not disrupt anything, because the ultimate goal is to survive. And then I think, years down the track, to the cost, she starts to feel the cost of that. It's undeniable.
Mhm.
Um, and I think she does it because she keeps trying to keep her. Goal in sight.
Mhm.
She's clearly not doing it because she wants power for herself or glory. I mean, you see the way she lives. She's just like, all she's about is keeping the train on the track, you know? That's all she's about. But still, I think she's really relieved in a way to be caught out and to have to confront the horrible things that she did, and take responsibility for them, because I think it was tearing her up that she was not only complicit in that system, but she was leading it. You know, she was the head of it. So I think that she's in a much. I mean, she always did those things, so she'll always have the responsibility. She'll always have that on her, that she did those things. You know, it doesn't excuse her from having done them just because she apologizes and takes responsibility. She's still the person that did them. But I think she's in a much better place, having abdicated that, you know, responsibility, being able to just focus on what she originally set out to do.
And from the experience of playing her as a character and working on this series for 2 seasons at this point, what are the skills that you feel that's really allowed you to develop and enhance and evolve as an actor?
I don't know. I don't know. I hope I evolved as an actor. I'm always trying to evolve as an actor. I'm always trying to learn. I always think that they're you know, work with people, extraordinary people. I always try to learn from. I had so many great experiences working with so many talented people on this show, you know. And I always make mistakes, or think I make mistakes, and then try to learn from my mistakes. And that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, it's such a pleasure and such a joy watching your performance in this series, and I can't wait to watch the rest of season 2. And thank you so much for talking with us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to me.